Bone Accordion, Tales from South Asia by Shane Bordoli. Read by the author. Foreign places yield more to one who is himself worth meeting. Beowulf, Anonymous. Seamus Heaney translation. Introduction. There is no trap so deadly as the trap you set for yourself. Raymond Chandler, The Long Goodbye. I wrote this anthology in the foothills of the Himalayas, and it's full of stories and poems about what it's like to travel and live in India and Nepal. There are also plenty of flights of fancy along the way in this collection of unconventional travel writing. Part 1 documents my tempestuous love affair with India, covering my time there between 2018 and 2021. If you're lucky, as Mother India dances by, you might just hear the tinkle of her ankle bells. Part 2 is all about Nepal in 2022. I'm in Kathmandu right now writing this introduction. You can listen to this collection of stories and poems in order, or just pick bits at random, as they're pretty much freestanding works. Whatever works for you. Shall we take a listen? P.S. I use the word Baba a lot in the Indian sections. If you think of a sadhu, you won't go far wrong. I'm sure you know the sort. Dreaded hair, tangled beards, living free from worldly possessions, and usually very stoned. Book 1. India. And what shall I love if not the enigma? Giorgio de Chirico. Chapter 1. Yogi Bear. 1. I saw a Nagababa today, one of those sadhus who live on cremation grounds, naked and smeared in the deceased's ashes. He was boldly striding naked down a busy street, with his dreadlocks and matted hair framing his fierce eyes. The only thing he held was a human skull, which he used as a bowl, and he was carrying it like a fucking handbag. He stopped to get a light for his beedi, an Indian leaf-rolled cigarette, and stood where I eat my lunchtime thali. Thali is a staple diet here: rice, dal, chapati, and vegetables served on a metal plate. It costs about 50p at a street stall, and you can have seconds free of charge. After getting his light, he set off again. People tend to be scared of Nagababas here, and I admit they're very much a force of nature. Is his thinking much different to the Nagababas of the millennia before Christ? Is our thinking any better or worse than your average Athenian or Roman of those periods? During the height of the first lockdown, I spotted a regular, fully clothed Baba on my way to the shops during the little window of time we had to go out and get essentials. The dust rose in little twisters in the burning heat. Like most people of his ilk, I assumed that he would gladly accept some money. I'd seen him squatting comfortably on his haunches in the same spot several times, always with the same inscrutable look. I approached him, reaching for my wallet, and was about to extract some cash when our eyes met. He gave me a look that said many things instantly, the way they can in India. It said something instantaneously and with clarity. It was along the lines of, "Thank you, but I live without money or possessions. I wander or stay, as is my wont. I smoke ganja and praise Shiva by chanting his name. Thus is the nature of my life. Pass on, fellow traveller, your need is greater than mine." I put my wallet away and smiled and moved on, feeling that somehow he knew much more about this life than I did. Apart from the slight change in the line of his gaze to look at me, he remained unmoved and sat serenely surveying the world around him. 2. I sit and wonder as I sip my chai, sweet milk Indian tea, at my favourite roadside chai stall. It's a good place for reflection. Nearby, music booms out from behind the tinted windows of an SUV, and beside it sits a semi-naked old man staring out from his broken-down hut. Behind his shack, far down at the bottom of the wooded slope, I can see where Ramjula Bridge crosses the mighty Ganges. My attention is often caught by the men who live here by the side of the road. They, for me, are the actual ancient and spiritual India, alive and well in the 21st century. Each man lives alone under a tarpaulin, held up by bits of wood. These bachelor pads are very narrow, offering a sleeping area about the width of a person, and they run parallel to the road, set back by 1 or 2 feet. The front of these abodes is often totally open. The men wake, smoke, eat and sleep in full view of the road. The more lavish affairs feature a couple of cooking pots and a little fire pit. Typically, an old calendar featuring a Hindu deity is pinned up for decoration. These guys primarily worship the Indian god Shiva and smoke chillums, small clay pipes, filled with hashish. This is the life of a Baba. Tree-lined slopes behind the shacks make this perfect for every outdoorsy type. Water is fetched from the public water taps dotted along the road. There is no electricity. Cooked food can be gotten from the big ashrams, religious communes, nearby for those who need it. Are Babas what's left of the magic of Rishikesh in India in general? Do Babas shit in the woods? For the most part, they wear an expression of creased wisdom, worthy of Gandalf after a few pipes. Anyone who lives in this kind of fashion is deemed a Baba. Of course, some are crazy, and some are criminals and thieves. All in all, quite a motley crew. A genuine sadhu's lifestyle, and often their way of thinking, is reminiscent of ancient Greek cynic philosophers who initially wandered around with not much more than a cloak and a staff. The Indian version has a couple of lungis, patterned cotton wraps for the lower half of the body, a blanket or two, a tiffin box, a metal container for food, and a chillum as the sum of their possessions. Sadhus are good old honest India. In fact, the very same gymnosophists, as the Greeks called them, that Alexander the Great came across when he popped over here a few thousand years back. Gymnosophist means naked philosopher, and naked some of them are. A few made it as far as Egypt in Alexander's time. There must have been cross-pollination between the schools of philosophy. In contrast, living out a philosophical creed died a millennia ago in the West. It's just part and parcel of everyday life here by the roadside. They will belong to a particular sect if they genuinely qualify as a real sadhu. They only get together in groups at the religious Kumbh Mela festival, the largest gathering of people on earth, or at Holy Mahashivaratri, which is a festival held in Benares, Varanasi. The middle classes don't like them because they say they're all thieves and dangerous criminals on the run. In reality, they deem Babas lazy parasites. The pandemic didn't affect the Babas much, as they already lived in a kind of post-apocalyptic world anyhow. Strictly speaking, the Babas are different. They're not necessarily outcasts who have been left behind. It's all a question of perspective. Have we cast them off, or have they cast us off? But these fellows, some have actually chosen this path. And sometimes it really is a life of renunciation in pursuit of moksha, enlightenment or nirvana. For some, the goal is evading the law. Housing upgrades are available in shacks made from wood and more extensive tarpaulins, and this time with just enough room to stand and swing a cat. These homes usually also have a closed front and will be lived in by a family. All you have to do is source the materials and build them yourself. Any disused area big enough that stays unused long enough will become a shanty town. A little micro society will spring up. The forested hillsides around Rishikesh are steep, and it's illegal to cut down trees, as the Forestry Commission owns much of the surrounding countryside. With clear flat areas at a premium, people make homes under, over or in between existing dwellings or shops. It looks timeless to me in the moist heat of the late evening. As I was thinking all this up on the way back to my guest house, it began to rain, and for the first time since I was a child, I didn't mind being out in it. I'd been walking in the rain for a while before it dawned on me that I was really enjoying it. With no electrical devices on me, and wearing only shorts, t-shirt and flip-flops, it meant I wasn't bothered about getting wet. The rain cooled the humid air, but it was still warm, so it felt rather pleasant. The longer I'm here, the more I'm starting to realise the stark simplicity of India. In summer, you get hot. In winter, cold. And during the monsoon, wet. All three of them in the extreme. 3. The following day I tried to give 10 rupees to a sadhu sitting near the chai stall, but he declined and offered me a go on his chillum instead. When I refused the offer, he took hold of my 10 rupees, waved it a little uncomprehendingly and muttered, "Ah, paper money." It felt like money wasn't exactly a priority in his mind at that moment. Unfortunately, I soon realised that he's one of those stone-cold crazy babbas who are outcasts even among social lepers. A sadhu who has clearly lost his marbles. Shortly afterwards, he was vigorously moved on by the chai walla at the roadside chai stall. This particular chai stall is a small cart, and in front, some planks of wood on loose bricks act as a seating area. A trusty tarp stretched over a bit of shelter to the left is where the chai walla sleeps. There's generally no pavement in India, it's just a bit of dirt next to the road. Strange as it may sound, I'm at my happiest sitting at one of these chai places by the side of the road. Here you will find some of the most down-to-earth, genuine people on the planet. They are usually of that indeterminate age of those who live outdoors. They're seemingly in a slightly off-kilter timeline to that one that we all live in. It's a joy to sit here in the summer without an electric light in view, the owner a little tipsy on his evening tipple, alongside the wandering sadhus who are passing through on their pilgrimages. On returning to my guest house, the gentle and smiley Indian man staying on the ground floor beckoned me, and, with his eyes gleaming, said, "I wish you to come to my village." He lives in a neighbouring state and would love to have me as his house guest, free of cost, of course. I let him know how touched and honoured I was. We had only ever said hello to each other before, but he was leaving that night and he thought he'd ask me along. It's far from the first time I've been asked along to this sort of thing, but I genuinely think people don't really expect me to say yes. I graciously turned him down as I didn't want to end up stuck in some remote area for an extended period with no way of getting back. I know what he means when he says small village. They are like the kind you have in medieval fairy tales. This is terrific, but they also feature the bits left out of the stories. These include the family sharing an outdoor squat toilet or merely shitting in the fields. The electricity supply would be somewhere between sporadic and none at all, but the man's offer was beautiful, warm, kind-hearted. A gesture from a gentle, open heart to, well, I can't say another, not yet, but I'm working on it. Whatever you would call that experience is one of the reasons I came to India.